Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever found yourself chasing perfection, thinking if only you could be smarter, more successful, thinner, richer, quieter, bolder, better, then you would finally feel enough? You're not alone. Many of us are trapped in the prison of perfectionism, a silent, suffocating struggle where we edit who we are, hide what we feel, and strive endlessly for an ideal that doesn't even exist. Perfectionism isn't the same as striving for excellence. It's not about growth. It's about fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being loved. And the worst part, it disconnects us from who we really are. But here's the good news. There's another way, a braver, freer path, the path of embracing your flaws. Today, we'll explore what it really means to set yourself free from the chains of perfection, not by fixing yourself, but by finally allowing yourself to be fully human. Because when we dare to be imperfect, we don't just liberate ourselves, we inspire others to do the same. We live in a world that glamorizes perfection. From social media highlight reels to polished resumes and filtered selfies, everything around us tells a story that says, be better, be flawless, be more. But perfectionism isn't the golden path to success or self-respect that it pretends to be. It's a well-disguised lie. Perfectionism whispers to us that if we just try a little harder, do a little more, and never mess up will finally be enough. It paints this picture of a future where everything falls into place, where we're admired, safe, and immune from pain, shame. We think of rejection. That's the hook. It promises safety through control. But the truth is perfectionism doesn't protect us. It imprisons us. At its core, perfectionism isn't about healthy achievement or self-improvement. It's a defense mechanism. It's driven by fear. The fear of being judged, the fear of feeling inadequate, the fear of failure. When we operate from perfectionism, we're not trying to be our best selves. We're trying to avoid being seen as anything less than perfect. But here's the hard truth. Perfectionism doesn't lead to freedom or peace. It leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and disconnection. It builds a wall between who we truly are and who we believe we must be to be accepted. And that wall becomes a prison, not just from others, but from ourselves. Consider this when you're striving to be perfect. Are you truly present? Are you connected to joy, to curiosity, to your own needs? Or are you stuck in a loop of comparison, self-criticism, and emotional burnout? One of the biggest lies perfectionism tells is that it's the key to success. But research and real life show us something different. People who struggle with perfectionism often procrastinate, not because they're lazy, but because the pressure to do it perfectly paralyzes them. They fear that anything less than perfect is worthless. This leads to missed opportunities, strained relationships, and a deepening sense of failure, the very things perfectionism promises to help us avoid. Even more painfully, perfectionism stifles our ability to connect. When we try to curate a flawless image, we deny others the chance to see our real, messy, beautiful selves. We become performers instead of participants in our own lives. And in doing so, we push away the intimacy and belonging we crave. So why do we hold on to it? Because letting go of perfectionism means facing our fears of being judged, misunderstood, or not enough. It requires vulnerability. And that's terrifying. But here's the paradox. Only by letting go of the need to appear perfect can we truly be seen, loved, and understood. Only by dropping the mask do we give others permission to do the same. It's important to realize that perfectionism isn't something we choose once and for all. It's a mindset that shows up in different ways. In our parenting, our work, our bodies, we think our relationships. Sometimes it disguises itself as high standards or responsibility. Other times it looks like people pleasing or overachievement. That's why awareness is the first key. When we can name it, we can begin to dismantle it. This doesn't mean we stop striving for excellence or growth. It means we stop attaching our worth to the outcome. We stop believing that we must earn love, respect, or value by being flawless. We begin to understand that our humanity, with all its messiness, mistakes, and learning curves, is not a flaw. It's the point. So the next time perfectionism shows up, whispering that you're not good enough, that you need to do more, or hide your flaws, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I let this go? That question alone can crack open the prison door. Perfectionism isn't a badge of honor. It's a burden. But the beautiful truth is, you don't have to carry it anymore. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. And real is more than enough. Perfectionism doesn't just weigh down our minds. It builds invisible walls between us and the people around us. What seems like a harmless quest for excellence often becomes a way we silently push ourselves into isolation. And without even realizing it, we begin to lose touch with who we are and with the people we love the most. When you're chasing perfection, your internal voice becomes less about curiosity and more about criticism. Every mistake feels like proof that you're unworthy. Every flaw seems like something to hide. You stop asking, what do I need? And instead wonder, what will they think? In doing so, you slowly abandon your true self to become someone more acceptable, more polished, someone more perfect. But here's the cost: you stop showing up as you. We cannot fully connect with others when we're constantly editing ourselves. Perfectionism tells us that vulnerability is dangerous, that being messy, emotional, or imperfect will get us rejected. So we armor up, we hide our struggles. We say, I'm fine. When we're falling apart inside, we show only our highlight reels. But deep connection only grows where there's honesty, not performance. When people can't see our truth, they can't love us for who we are. They only see the version we allow them to see. And even if they admire that version, we still feel alone. Because deep down, we know it's not the real us they're accepting. Think about the last time you held back your true feelings because you didn't want to seem too sensitive, too weak, too dramatic. Or maybe you kept quiet about your dreams because you feared someone would laugh. That's perfectionism silently steering the wheel. And every time we betray our truth to meet someone else's expectations, we lose a little more connection, both with others and with ourselves. Even our relationships suffer. Perfectionism creates distance. In partnerships, it can look like never admitting when you need help, always needing to have the answer, or keeping your partner at arm's length emotionally. In friendships, it can mean avoiding deep conversations or pretending everything's okay when it's not. Over time, these patterns create emotional walls that no one can climb over. What's more painful is how perfectionism disconnects us from ourselves. When you're so focused on how others perceive you, you stop asking, what do I want? Or what do I feel? You become a stranger to your own emotions and needs. You mold yourself to fit an ideal rather than honoring your real, raw, messy, beautiful inner world. Eventually, the cost becomes too high. You wake up and realize you're exhausted from pretending, performing, perfecting. You don't recognize yourself in the mirror. You've spent so long hiding the parts of you that didn't seem acceptable that you've lost touch with your most authentic self, the self that laughs loudly, cries easily, makes mistakes, learns, loves, and lives fully. But here's the truth: connection doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires us to be real, not flawless. People don't connect with you because you're perfect. They connect with you because you're honest, because you're willing to be seen even in your imperfection. They connect with your humanness, the part of you that feels pain, makes mistakes, and gets back up again. That's what creates belonging. And reconnecting starts with small, intentional acts. Saying, I need help. Admitting when you're struggling, telling the truth, even when it's scary, letting someone see the parts of you that you normally hide. Every time you choose truth over performance, you take a brick out of the wall perfectionism built around your life. You also begin to reconnect with yourself. When you give yourself permission to feel what you feel, without judgment, you start to heal. When you accept that being a human means being imperfect, you begin to come home to yourself. And that's where true freedom lies. So if perfectionism has disconnected you from your inner world and from the people you love, know this: it's never too late to come back. Real connection isn't about impressing people. It's about letting them in. And you, just as you are, even with all your messy, beautiful humanity, are worthy of love and connection. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. For many, it sounds like weakness, like crying in public, admitting you're scared, or saying, I don't know. But in truth, vulnerability is courage in its purest form. It's the willingness to show up, be seen, and be real even when the outcome is uncertain. And when we talk about embracing our flaws, vulnerability isn't just important, it's everything. Think about if flaws are the parts of us we're taught to hide, the things that don't measure up, the qualities that don't look like the picture perfect version of success, beauty, or strength. To embrace them means saying, here I am, not perfect, but true. That takes immense bravery because it means opening yourself up to judge and misunderstanding and rejection. But here's the paradox. The more we try to hide our flaws, the more disconnected, anxious, and ashamed we feel. And the more we allow them to be seen, to let others witness our imperfections without apology, the more free, grounded, and connected we become. Why? Because vulnerability builds bridges. It invites authenticity into our relationships. It creates a space where others feel safe to be real too. When you have the courage to say, I'm struggling, or I made a mistake, or this is me, flaws and all. You're not showing weakness. You're modeling strength. You're showing that you trust others enough to be seen as you really are. And that level of trust, honesty, and rawness creates something powerful, true belonging. Perfectionism tells us to polish every flaw before we can show up. Vulnerability tells us to show up as we are right now. And that shift changes everything. When we stop hiding our flaws and start embracing them, we begin to understand that they're not signs of failure, or they're signs of being human. And in that realization, we find not shame, but compassion. Take a moment to think about someone you admire deeply. Chances are what draws you to them isn't their perfection. It's their courage, their honesty, their ability to admit when things are hard. It's their vulnerability. Because vulnerability creates resonance. It allows us to see ourselves in others. We recognize the shared struggle, the common humanity, the mutual messiness. That's what pulls us closer. And it's not just in relationships where vulnerability makes a difference. It's in our creativity, leadership, parenting, and even healing. When we let go of the idea that we need to have it all together, we create space to learn, to grow, and to live more fully. In creativity, vulnerability allows us to take risks, to write the story, paint the picture, start the podcast, or share the idea even if it's not perfect. In leadership, it looks like admitting when you're wrong and asking your team for input. In parenting, it means saying, I'm still learning too, and showing your children that it's okay to make mistakes. Vulnerability isn't a liability. It's the birthplace of authenticity, innovation, connection, and change. But embracing vulnerability isn't easy, especially in a world that rewards perfection and punishes perceived weakness. It requires practice. It requires safe people. And it requires a commitment to honor yourself even when it feels risky. Here are a few ways to start embracing your flaws through vulnerability. Name your inner critic. Get familiar with the voice that tells you you're not enough. Give it a name. Challenge it. Don't let it run the show. Speak your truth even when it shakes your voice. Share your story with someone who's earned the right to hear it. Set boundaries. Vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing. It means intentional sharing with people who are safe and supportive. Practice self-compassion when a flaw rises up or a mistake happens. Treat yourself the way you would treat a beloved friend. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Every time you choose to be real over being right or polished, you grow. That's worth celebrating. Vulnerability isn't about exposure. It's about honesty. It's about daring to be known even when it's uncomfortable. And when you do, you'll discover something beautiful. People don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be real. Because in the end, embracing your flaws isn't just about accepting yourself. It's about allowing the world to experience the fullness of who you are. And that's where your greatest power lies. We often see flaws as the problem, the thing we need to fix, hide, or overcome. But what if they're not the problem at all? What if they're the doorway? What if the very things you think disqualify you are actually what make you real, relatable, and deeply human? The truth is, flaws aren't obstacles to growth. They are the starting point for it. When we recognize and accept our imperfections, we create a foundation for transformation, because you cannot grow from a place of pretending. Growth only happens when you meet yourself exactly where you are, with compassion, curiosity, and honesty. Let's say you tend to overthink and second guess yourself. You might label that as a flaw, something that makes you less confident. But when you pause and get curious about it, when you stop judging and start listening, you might discover a depth of care, thoughtfulness, and responsibility beneath it. That so-called flaw becomes an invitation to explore your inner world, to learn how to trust your instincts, and to set better boundaries around your energy. That's how flaws become portals. They're not roadblocks. They're guideposts showing us where we need healing, where we're invited to grow, and how we can connect more deeply with others. Flaws also make us relatable. Think about it. Have you ever shared a struggle with someone, maybe a mistake you made or a way you felt not enough, and they said, me too? That moment creates instant connection, not because you were perfect, but because you were honest. Shared imperfection is where real connection is born. When we show others our cracks, we give them permission to put down their own masks. We invite them into something honest and unfiltered, a place where we can laugh, cry, and breathe together. Flaws break the illusion of separation. They remind us that we're all figuring it out. We're all messy, and we're all worthy of love anyway. This is the heart of authenticity. Authenticity isn't about having it all figured out. It's about being rooted in who you are, even when that person is growing, changing, and learning. It's about showing up in truth, not performance. And that kind of presence is magnetic, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Ironically, when you stop striving to be flawless and start embracing your humanity, people trust you more. You become more approachable, more impactful, more respected, because you're not pretending, you're embodying integrity. Even in leadership or professional roles, embracing your imperfections can strengthen your influence. A leader who can admit mistakes creates a culture of openness. A speaker who stumbles over a word but keeps going models courage. A parent who says, I was wrong, teaches their child that mistakes aren't shameful, they're part of learning. In every area of life, our flaws are opportunities to model honesty, growth, and grace. Let's also talk about the personal transformation that comes when we stop resisting our imperfections. Instead of wasting energy, hiding what we don't like about ourselves, we start using that energy to understand it, to support it, to love it. For example, someone who struggles with social anxiety may see it as a major flaw, something to suppress. But by embracing it, they may uncover a deep sensitivity to energy, a need for quiet, or a gift for empathy. What they once labeled as a weakness becomes part of their wisdom. Your flaws are often where your light gets in. They're where life has shaped you, where resilience has been born, and where compassion has grown. When you can look at those places, not with shame, but with softness, you open yourself to a deeper kind of power. But this takes practice. It takes unlearning the belief that worthiness is earned through perfection. It means learning to sit with discomfort, to meet your inner critic with kindness, and to turn your gaze inward with tenderness instead of judgment. Here are a few reflections to help shift how you view your flaws. What do I judge most harshly in myself? Where did I learn that this part of me, what was wrong or unacceptable? What truth might this flaw be pointing me toward? How can I care for this part of me rather than try to erase it? Every time you choose acceptance over shame, curiosity over judgment, you create space for healing and wholeness. You begin to see yourself not as broken, but as becoming, not as lacking, but as learning. Flaws are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are sacred markers of your humanity. And in embracing them, you don't just grow, you come alive. You've come this far. You've started to see how perfectionism traps you, how it disconnects you, and how your flaws can actually lead to growth and connection. Now comes the most powerful part of the journey, reclaiming your life, choosing to step out of the perfection prison and into something richer, messier, and far more meaningful freedom. But let's be honest, breaking free from perfectionism isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. It's a lifestyle shift, and it takes real intention, because the voice of perfectionism is sneaky. It whispers, you're not good enough yet, in ways that sound like productivity, discipline, ambition, or self-improvement. That's why we need tools, practical steps that help us unlearn the lies and replace them with truth. Let's walk through 5 key steps you can take to build a life beyond perfection. 1. Name it to tame it. The first step is awareness. You can't heal what you don't name. Start by noticing where perfectionism shows up in your life. Is it in your parenting, your appearance, your career, your relationships? Does it sound like constant self-criticism, procrastination, people-pleasing, or the inability to rest? When you notice it, say it out loud or write it down. That's perfectionism talking. Even that small act creates space between you and the pattern. It helps you pause, breathe, and respond differently. 2. Choose self-compassion over self-criticism. Perfectionism thrives on shame and self-judgment. But the antidote is self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness, patience, and understanding you would offer to a dear friend when you make a mistake or feel inadequate. Try saying, this is hard and I'm doing the best I can. Or, I'm still learning and that's okay. These aren't just comforting words. They're tools that rewire your nervous system and allow you to stay grounded instead of spiraling into shame. 3, redefine success on your own terms. Perfectionism convinces us that success is external praise, achievements, image. But true freedom begins when you define success for yourself. Ask yourself, what does success feel like in my body, not just look like on paper? What kind of life do I want to build? One that's impressive or one that's meaningful? What matters most to me? Not my parents, my peers, or social media. Maybe success means rest. Maybe it means deep relationships, creative freedom, or emotional peace. When you start defining success based on alignment instead of approval, perfectionism loses its grip. 4, practice imperfection on purpose. One of the most healing things you can do is practice imperfection intentionally. Post the unfiltered photo. Say, I don't know. Leave the dishes in the sink. Let your house be messy when your friends come over. These acts may feel terrifying at first, but over time, they build resilience. They teach your brain and body that your worth is not tied to control, approval, or appearances. You don't need to earn your right to exist by being perfect. You already belong just as you are. 5, surround yourself with safe, authentic people. You don't have to do this work alone. In fact, you can't. Surround yourself with people who value vulnerability, who don't flinch at your honesty, who model imperfection themselves. Real freedom blossoms in relationships where you're not expected to be flawless, only faithful to your truth. If your circle expects you to keep performing, it might be time to lovingly expand that circle. Find the people who make room for all of you, the growing, evolving, occasionally messy you. Those people will become your safety net, your mirror, your fuel. Stepping out of the perfection trap doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow from a place of love, not fear. It means you strive because you want to, not because you have to prove something. It means you begin living not to meet impossible standards, but to honor the truth of who you are. That's where life gets real. That's where it gets rich. That's where you reclaim your power, not by becoming perfect, but by being whole. So today, choose to take just one step. Speak your truth, rest without guilt. Let someone see the real you. You don't have to get it all right. You just have to keep showing up, imperfect and brave. So here we are. We've peeled back the layers of perfectionism, seen the walls it builds with the lies it tells, and the pain it disguises as protection. But we've also uncovered something even more powerful, the truth that you don't need to be perfect to be worthy, loved, or free. The real gift isn't in achieving flawlessness. It's in embracing your full humanity, in standing firmly in your imperfections and saying, this is me. Not polished, not perfect, but whole. Because when you give yourself permission to be fully human, you reclaim something sacred, your voice, your freedom, and your power. You stop living from a place of fear and start showing up from a place of truth. And that's when your life starts to feel like yours again. No more hiding, no more hustling for approval. No more shrinking to fit into impossible molds. The world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your presence. It needs your honesty. It needs your you. And if there's one thing you take from today, let it be this. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. Thank you for walking through this journey with open hearts and brave spirits. And remember, the work doesn't end here. It begins with small, courageous choices you make every day. Choices to be honest instead of polished, present instead of perfect, human instead of heroic. Keep choosing you, keep choosing truth, and keep rising with grace, with courage, and with every beautiful flaw that makes you whole. This is Rise with Brene, and until next time, stay real, stay brave, and stay rising.